From Sunset Beach, Hawaii, weighing 267 pounds, the magnificent Muraco.
Why is it they call him magnificent? The man who lifts condominiums off his chest. Anything that's explosive, anything that's exciting, Prince of Darkness, Master of Destruction, perpetrator of violence. Get ready! I'm gonna burn this place down!
Hello everybody, are we recording? Yes, we are recording, good. Hello everybody, it's Don Muraco's Magnificent Podcast here. My name's James and we are going to do another Ask Muraco Anything where we ask Don an hour's worth of your questions that you've posted to me on YouTube or wherever you've posted to. Before we get to it though, I'll do plugs. Books, The Rock and Owen Hart on Amazon, dontherockmuraco.com for all your signed merchandise, and whenever it becomes available...
Hey, what a lovely shirt.
Hey, thank you very much, Don. I don't know where I got it or where you can get it, but yeah, this is basically the prototype, but hopefully that'll be available sooner rather than later. But for now, we have an hour's worth of questions from fans directly to you for you to answer. Are you ready? You don't look like you're ready.
I'm ready.
Oh, okay, good. Who's texting?
Somebody, I don't know.
Okay. It's not like Irish Mickey Doyle or whatever saying, why am I not on this show?
Yeah. All right, wake me up.
Okay, then. We'll go straight to it. Normally, well, actually, my question was going to be about Bobby Davis, but I asked beforehand and you said you never met him and you didn't know any stories about him, so I think we'll just skip ahead. But
Well, he was BR's, I know he's Buddy Rogers' manager, right?
Yeah. He was one of the first managers as well. I don't know who, like, the first man... I know just, like, some woman called, like, Ma Bass. She was in the olden days, but that was, like, the Tennessee area, maybe. I don't know many of the old managers before the 70s.
No. I don't know where they started. Where did they start? In the South, probably.
Yeah, probably. The reason why I was going to bring up Bobby Davis was because in the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame Awards, he missed out by like 4%. And I thought it was just something to bring up and ask, but I think he seems like he did a few years and then just got out of the business and just led a happy life somewhere else.
Oh, God, I wonder, would he be the same beautiful Bobby Davis? Would that be, I don't know. I don't think one of them was Ernie Ross' a partner. One of the Bobby, I'm not sure which one. I don't want to start.
Yeah.
Rumors that I don't hear.
Well, no, I don't think it was that guy. I think it was a different Bobby something or Beautiful Bobby. But,
yeah.
I don't know if it was you or someone else told me that was like one of his like romantic partners back in the 60s.
Yeah,
one of the wrestlers he managed. But no, it's not the same guy because I don't think this Bobby Davis was a wrestler at all.
No, I never met him. Or maybe I met him, but I never didn't know him. And it was just barely a hello or something.
Who were some of the early managers that you remember before, like, the Lou Albanos and stuff made a career out of it?
The only one I was the Big K, Stan Kowalski. He managed Koloff. Then Heenan was with the Blackjacks over in Indianapolis around the same time. And then when I got to San Francisco, Ken Ramey was one, Dr. Ken Ramey. And I don't know too many others.
No, there weren't that many in the 40s and 50s.
No, even in the 60s, I guess. They didn't come in vogue till later in the 70s. And Gary Hart and those guys, I guess Mark Lewin started them in Australia with Gary Hart and Big Bad John and stuff. When they started working them into finishes and taking around guys that probably cruise the heels that didn't have the type of interview that they wanted or do those type of promos, and they could insert the heel manager to do the promos and get the heat. The guy get the heat in the ring.
You think it was something that people just didn't really think of as far as like a mouthpiece for their wrestler who wasn't a great talker? Or do you think some promoters just resented paying an extra person to not even wrestle?
Oh, yeah. Sure, a lot of promoters really hated that. But then probably most of those guys were just were guys in the office anyway, that they were always, that they were always hanging around running for coffee or donuts or getting lunch or something, hanging around wrestling offices and trying to contribute ideas and stuff. Always people, the guys just like Paul Heyman. He was always, yeah. I remember the time to Madison Square Garden. They'd all him and a couple other guys would run to Ernie Ross room, and they were always hanging around the Wizard or the managers, something, just to, I guess, just to get ideas or learn more about the business.
Yeah, well, Heyman certainly did. I know that he did his best to hang around the managers and absorb all the information he could. We are going to do an hour. Well, we're going to do less than an hour now. We're going to run up to an hour for this podcast for a load of questions from fans. They were submitted a few weeks ago. There were so many questions, I didn't even ask for any more this time. So this first one is from Frank and Eve Quadrino. He says when he resided in New Haven, Connecticut, he lived in lived in the same neighborhood with Sal Balomo, Rocky Johnson, the Samoans, Jimmy Snuka, Tony Greer, and Rick Martel, who also lived nearby. Was it hard for you to stay in kayfabe in the public eye? Excuse me. One night he was inside the World Gym East, and then Martel came in to work out, and Muraco remained inside the gym in view of Martel. Muraco at the time was very approachable, even though he was a heel. Why did you remain approachable as a heel when many heels didn't? So for starters, keeping kayfabe in public places, were you that bothered?
No, not in New York, not in WWF at the time. It was too big of an area, and it wasn't that. It was just a matter of your own, respectability or your own credibility at the time that you would do it. It wasn't because the area was so big. Sometimes you'd have to ride. You'd have to get rides with other guys. I mean, usually, made a point about of riding separately, but there would be times, I guess, I'd get a ride with Martel or Martel would ride with me. Be Kurt Hennig or somebody like that. But usually those guys, like he was in a tag with Tony or something like that. It wasn't, too often that, that you would cross like that. No, it wasn't hard because the territory is so big. And, there's so many people up north.
Did you ever travel, like, needs must, and there was no other way around it? Did you ever travel with, like, Snuka, let's say, while you were in the middle of a feud, or Backlund, or whoever?
No, never Backlund for sure, and never Jimmy. I'll probably tell you, couple dark bars or something. We'd sit, have a drink or something, with nobody around. But no, we didn't hang like partners.
Yeah. What territories were most strict with keeping the guys feuding on screen apart?
Well, they all were pretty much, back until Vince got rid of the commissions and stuff. Everybody's pretty. Eddie Graham was, real stickler, and guys just knew better. I mean, you just, you just had to know better. You had to realize, that was your living, and that was the way it was. You go out your way to hang out with Dusty or Jack or something like that. That I was feuding with or did something going with.
I mean, there do seem to be levels of it, though. So let's say Eddie Graham would say let's say you're in a bar and you're a bad guy and a good guy comes into the bar, they cannot be in that same bar. They have to leave and go somewhere else. And then there was also territories where the good guys and the bad guys had different hotels. I mean, they'd sneak back and forth here and there probably, but the WWF was never like that then.
No, it wasn't really because the cities are too big. You're working with Boston and Washington D.C. and New York, New York City and stuff like that. The populations of millions. So it wasn't not so much that that was the case.
Hmm.
You were able to. It wasn't a driving home factor. I mean, everybody was conscious of it, and you were aware of it. And, just to, for your own personal, regards. You watch yourself.
But just not take it to ridiculous lengths then. At least in the
No,
WWF.
not up there. No, like I said, there's too many people.
Yeah, exactly. Next one is I'm Not Booked Terry. Ask Don about some of the stuff Jerry Briscoe brought up in an interview he did with me, like picking the Briscoes up at the airport the day Jack retired. Did Jack say anything to you before he left? So we've said this story before about them leaving, but specifically, I'd forgotten that it was you, Jack, and Jerry. And what exactly? So it was the snow, wasn't it, that Jack looked around and just thought, I'm done?
Yeah, no, but Jerry, I was talking to Jerry, I did Jerry's podcast a week ago, actually, tomorrow morning. And a lot of his stories are crossed up. We got back, we got back from a red eye all-night flight. He said we stopped at a couple of the bars on the way out of Newark Airport. But I didn't, I don't remember that. I was just one of these 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, all night flights back from the West Coast or something. And Newark had all these different areas of parking. And we obviously went into the wrong area, walking up and down all these snow full lanes and stuff, looking for cars and stuff, And that's when Jack had the low voice, I'm out of here. That wasn't any case, talking, just overheard, in the background. And that was pretty much, and that was about it. He was out of here.
Yeah. How long have you been back in the WWF? Because it was like only a couple of weeks. I don't even know if you come back on TV yet by the time the Briscoes or Jack had decided he'd had enough.
Yeah, it hadn't been long. I just wasn't long. I'd come back from that run in Charlotte. I was in Charlotte for the summer, and good God, my wife, I was having a second baby. My son was born. It was
85, beginning of 85.
Okay, so in New Jersey. So yeah, but yeah, they were. I remember I worked with them. I forget who my tag partner was. Maybe Bob or probably Bob Orton. Worked with them in Pittsburgh, Jack and Jerry, and a couple other places. And they're getting ready to go home.
I'm going to find out while you're answering this next question. Then is so you've been traveling with him for maybe a couple of weeks beforehand. Was he grumbling beforehand, just saying, "Oh, I don't know how much longer I've got this in me," or was this like a snap? I'm done.
Oh, he wasn't happy. It was wintertime, the onset of winter. On the planes every day, not being at home. So I imagine it had built up. And like I said, he was a baby face, I was a heel, so we weren't living together, so to speak.
With it was Pittsburgh. You were right. You faced the Briscoe brothers, and your tag team partner wasn't Bob Orton. I'll give you one more guess.
Adrian?
Dick Murdoch.
No. Oh, all right.
I never knew you tagged with him.
Not a lot. Most of the times I remember probably be Japan when I worked with him. But yeah, he was he was with Adonis tag, and I was a heel, so
And what a send off for Jack as well.
Yeah.
See you later. I'll move on to the next one then. Doc Farnoff. I know Don was involved in at least one, maybe more altercations on TV with Gordon Soley. Was Gordon in on the work? He looked really surprised and indignant. I don't remember any other wrestlers putting their hands on him.
Oh yeah, he was always, of course, he's involved. I mean, Yeah, you can go slap Gordon around without, without foreknotice, preordained setup and stuff like that. Yeah, Gordon was always, how else could he sell it on TV? Sometimes he didn't want to be, a lot of times the announcer doesn't want to be, know exactly what's going on. Some do, some don't. Depends how they want to sell it. Sometimes they're more easier to react to a surprise or something like that or sometimes they want to. It depends on the announcer. But yeah, Gordon was always something. Nobody's going to put their hands on Gordon if he wasn't. He'd get fired. Immediately.
So I'm assuming this would be the booker suggesting this, but would Gordon solely lay out what he was willing to do beforehand, or would you just? Who would suggest what?
Oh, they would just somebody. Nobody had ever. Nobody ever really got physical with him. Just to insinuate that make like appear that I'm going to attack. With Piper, I just appeared like I was Gordon after Gordon and Roddy made the save. I never actually put my hands on him. Maybe I touched him, but I never never did anything to him.
Yeah, this was in Georgia, wasn't it? Was he commentating in Florida as well at the time? And did you ever do anything with him in Florida?
Yeah, Florida, Georgia. He did both.
Yeah.
He did the Saturday morning Georgia TV, Georgia All-Star Wrestling, and he did all the championship wrestling for Florida Wrestling TV.
Yeah.
Did
you work with him in a physical angle in Florida as well?
Well, I was out at the desk. When Barry Windham clocked me with that chair and different things like that. I'd be there and I'd be reading him the riot act. Gordon Soley, this and that. I don't like the way you guys are doing something, or something like that. But it was never a personal affront that I'm gonna. Later on, I'm sure maybe some guys threatened him, and to get as the more desperate business got, and to get a need to to do business. People might have gotten more physical. I never had to.
Talk us through the Georgia thing then, where you confront Gordon Soley for people who haven't seen it. So who came up with the idea and where was the idea meant to end up and what was it meant to accomplish?
Well, Piper was already turning. Piper got stabbed. He got stabbed in Charlotte somewhere, and that hit the national papers. So he was starting to turn babyface, and I don't remember the exact sequence or the way the setup was or how it was. I was mad at Soley for looking. I was mad at Soley or something, and was telling him something, and Roddy. Kept trying to, clarify matters. I pushed him out of the way, Finally let me have it, and we got into a fight. But, I never, I never manhandled Gordon. I threatened to, but never really, until later, I don't remember anybody really put their hands on Gordon.
Yeah, I know you were wrestling rather than watching the TV shows, but is he the greatest play-by-play commentator ever?
Right up there, as good as any. Crimson Mask, and the terms he originated, and he knew, he knew what was going on. He'd make up some great pictures. He'd draw some great pictures with words. And, he was always, he's always astute,
Was he the heaviest drinking commentator?
That's hard to say. They all like to knock them back. They're usually the Scotch, Mean Gene could whack them down. And Hank Renner they can all put them away pretty well.
Mm. I mean, during work as well. So the rumours go anyway that he'd have a little something under his desk.
Oh, was that Gordon?
Yeah, supposedly. Maybe this is in later
I don't
years.
know that. I don't know about that.
That might be.
I know he'd have coming back from Atlanta TV. He started pretty good. That the flight in the morning or the afternoon flight coming back from Atlanta to Tampa. After his work week was complete. He liked the Scotch.
Good for him. We'll move on to the next one then. Ted Turner, the man himself, asks, what was it like working Saturday night's main event on NBC? Love your match with Hogan. Did Dick Ebersol try to give you a script to do as a promo?
No, he worked in conjunction with Vince, and Vince was calling the shots and those things. As far as scripted promos, no, I never had that opportunity with the NBC or those people to really go out. That was pretty much hand picked. Those were Hulk's and Vince's guys that they were choosing by then.
You actually do, just off the top of my head, I know you do at least one promo on Saturday night's main event, but this was with Superstar in 88. So do you remember back then if that was scripted?
No, I don't. There's always a direction they wanted you to go. If they know you could get there, I doubt they wouldn't necessarily give you a scripted promo or they tell you how you want it to go. I honestly I don't remember, and I don't really remember ever having a scripted promo. But maybe I read something off of cards or something one time, more than once.
No,
but I'm sure I read things off of cards more than one time. As part of a production for something. So I don't know whether that was the Saturday Night Main Event or what it was for, but different things.
With Saturday night's main event shows, you've talked before about how you basically got double pay. You got paid by WWF and then you got paid by NBC. Was that right?
Right.
So it was like a double payoff, and it was a great event to be part of, especially in the main event. When you got into the arena and NBC are there, is there a different feeling in the arena? Is it a lot of new faces working for NBC? Is it unfamiliar? Is it just a lot busier? Higher production values, more. I mean, tell me the differences about going to an NBC production.
More faces, more cameras, different. But basically the skeleton crew of the wrestling crew was there to get their production done. And they had different makeup people or camera people or different people around that they needed, but they usually didn't. In the beginning, they didn't really interfere with us because they were pretty much two different worlds. But there were a lot of things that we had to do that they wanted us to do for them. Remember that Coco Beware doing that pile driver that had a camera in the mat. Under the mat and shooting up and shoot from the mat, watching the guy drop and different things like that. Different that they put together. But as far as actually controlling your creativity and everything, and then not yet. Maybe Hogan, maybe some of those guys that did the 10-minute long promos and stuff like that. Possibly. But I don't know.
No. Did you ever at least say hello to Dick Ebersol?
Yeah. Well, he was always around. He was pretty cool. My wife was a big fan of his Susan St. James, his wife.
Mm-hmm.
So she was she was doing movies and stuff at the time.
Did you ever get a photo with him and say, look who, one of those things?
No.
Okay, we'll move on then. Next question. Sword Kata. What did Don think of his finisher, the Hawaiian Hammer, being used by The Undertaker?
Well, I got it from Lucha Libre, so The Undertaker stole it from me via Lucha Libre. I don't know. It was just another. It was a hold. If you can get away with it, I worked well for me. I liked it.
With
But it's a pain in the ass keeping the guy up like that.
well, with one arm while you're pointing towards Jesse Ventura or whatever.
Yeah.
Who was the biggest guy you ever got up in the Hawaiian Hammer?
Oh, about 300. I don't remember who, but it was a couple of job guys.
At the same time?
No. Couple big guys.
I'm trying to think. Well, actually, someone else has written a question here. Burning Bright 34. Don, was anyone ever injured from your tombstone pile driver? Not saying you were an unsafe worker at all, but it was rumoured that some of the jobbers had a pretty rough landing. Thanks.
Not by me. Not mine. I always got, I was able to get my knees and pull them out when I hit.
Here's something that's not written down here. What were your... Right, so you had the Asiatic spike, you had the tombstone, everyone calls it the tombstone now, the inverted pile driver. Did you have any other finishes early on in your career that either you tried out or didn't work or that you used for years?
I used to spinning toll a little bit, like funk. And then when I was babyface, airplane spin, When I was babyface in Minneapolis, so I wasn't using too many finishes there. Guys like Koloff and, Larry Hennig. They were mostly high spots. Yeah, no, I wasn't until that came along. The Asiatic spike and it wasn't. I don't remember. I was in San Francisco. Maybe it was just a pile driver. I don't remember. Like I said, I never beat anybody, so it's hard to say. Most of them are false finishes or high spots.
And before I forget, where did the Asiatic spike come from?
Buddy Rogers, Eddie Graham. In that big hang, I went back to Florida, and I wanted to be a heel. So they said, "Well, what are you gonna?" So it was kind of Eddie's. They kept me for about 3 weeks under a mask. I was wrestling, and I was a crazy guy. I was, squashing everybody on TV, and so Steve Kern about 2 or 3 weeks into the TV with the mask and the outfit and everything like that. But Steve Kern gets on and really unprofessionally, because it was never done in those days. He exposed me. This magnificent M. This guy's, running through, Florida, leaving bodies and, in his wake. And so Kern goes, "What do you mean, Morocco?" We don't, understand, so it was, it was unprofessional. It was kind of like a real curveball that people weren't used to. Then I was enraged that he would expose me on television like that. So after his match or after my match, I was screaming and raging, and either he came to the ring or I came to the ring, and we got into a fight, and they sent the locker rooms out to break us apart. And finally, for 2 or 3 times, they're pulling us apart. And I'd been there with the long Jack Briscoe hair and the long hair, and when they pulled us apart, I was even balder than this, but I was totally bald, and the mask came off. And we're in that Fort Hesterly in the sportatorium there, and the crowd. I'd been a babyface there for two good long runs with the Jack and Koloff, and a big babyface there, and it was shocked that the crowd went silent, and then I went into a big tirade about who I was, Jack Briscoe, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That was it. The Magnificent Muraco.
We've talked about that before, and also
Yeah.
the footage is on YouTube, so people go and search for that as well. But just remind me again, did you just shave your head just because it would be weird to see you with a shaved head? Because you would have thought like you. Oh, why did you do it then?
My weekly, my monthly due.
No. I mean, back in the day, 1980, you had a
back
good,
there.
yeah, you had a good thick head of hair. You didn't lose it in a hair versus hair match or anything. So how come you just shaved it? You just thought it'd be a shock to the audience.
Yeah, there was Eddie's, and in order to to get their attention, when the mask comes off of you, you'll be there bald. And I'm trying to hide my head, and going crazy, and being irate and angry and everything. It was a really nice angle.
Yeah,
they put together.
Yeah. Next question is, and this is going to be a difficult one for you to answer because you're such a nice chap. Jim Evans, Mr. Muraco, who was your real worst enemy in the business?
Oh, God. I don't know. I didn't really have. Matt Bourne. I didn't care for him. He wrecked my wife's car.
What? Right, well then. Well, there's a story.
They told my wife's car, we're going to Elvira, New York, in a snowstorm. And I said, I'm going to turn around. He said, no, I got to go. I guess he'd been late and missed a bunch of shows. I said, I'll drive. So he's driving my wife's car, my Cutlass, and hit a patch of ice. And down the highway we went 60, 70 miles an hour. Up above, way up upstate New York. Had to tow the car back. He was always. I remember him anyway. Yeah, Matt Bourne. Yeah, he wrecked my wife's car.
There was a story there that was about to come out, and then you've held it back.
He had hate with a lot of wrestlers. Tina Gucci, Lonnie May, Brian Blair. I heard he got a hell of a fight with him one time. His dad was Tough Tony Bourne, and he was around locker rooms and stuff. I grew up a lot of times, and I heard he had had at it with guys and stuff before. I got along with him. He just the car thing was kind of. We're in Sydney together, and sitting in a bar at King's Cross, and he goes out, and the guys they know me because I used to work Sydney, and used to live down Tex Tavern in the Cross and stuff. So I knew a lot of guys down there, and he was walking out of the bar, and he clotheslined some guy up to the end of the bar. So I thought, oh no. And the guy said, hey, Don, that's where Pedro got all the beer balls, broke in his face, and Buddy Rogers. They ran a tight ship down there. And I said, hey, this guy, I said, don't worry, he's with me. Well,
did Matt ever pay for the car damage?
No, hell no.
Oh.
He didn't even pay the car damage, or he didn't help pay for the rent-a-car going back.
You ended up paying for the rent-a-car as well.
Yeah, everything. So I didn't ask. I just didn't want to talk. I didn't, I was beyond words by then.
Did you?
I think my wife had just sent the last payment in for the car that day too, as well.
No.
It was a nice little Cutlass too, old Cutlass.
You didn't let him drive the rental car back, did you?
Hell no. That's the last time I gave him a ride, I think.
Was this in the WWF? Because I know he was there for a brief
period. Yeah. It was before he was Dunk the Clown. I saw him, and he'd gone out and came back in as Dunk the Clown later.
Yeah.
I thought that's appropriate.
Yeah. He got that character because he was just Matt Bourne in maybe late 1992. And he'd just come back into the WWF, and Road Warrior Hawk, saw him sat slovenly on a bench, like, and he grabbed Vince McMahon and pointed at Matt and said, "Look, Vince, it's Krusty the Clown." Because he just reminded him of Krusty the Clown, just like a, just absolutely, just miserable, middle-aged, big fat gut and everything. And that's where Doink the Clown came from. So,
I didn't know that.
So there was, I'm sure I won't get it, but you're about to tell another story about Matt Bourne and then you stop yourself. Is that anything you're going to bring up, or are we just going to move on?
No, I'll move on.
No, okay, we'll move on then.
I don't want to get into. Somebody's dead. No.
Okay, we'll move on then.
He was a Piper. He did Roddy Piper. It's almost as good as Roddy Piper. He did Piper promos. I guess growing up in Oregon, he had they got he was dead ringer for Roddy.
I shall move on to the next one, and this is a name I'm really going to attack here. Delino Bilbro, or Bruh, or something. I vaguely remember a match in Jacksonville where the Texas Outlaws, Dusty Rhodes and Dick Murdoch wrestled Don Muraco and Jack Briscoe in a loser leaves state match. I believe this match was in the early 1970s, pre-American Dream, and Don Muraco got Dusty Rhodes in the figure four leg lock, and Dusty conceded. And then when Dusty came back a couple of years later, he eventually turned face and became the American Dream. Does Don remember that match in Jacksonville?
Hell no. That never happened.
Well,
what was he smoking? What was this guy smoking when he saw this match?
Well, it says, I actually sort of cleaned it up and said early 1970s, but he writes early 1970, and you weren't in Florida.
I didn't get there till 74.
Yeah. So the answer is no, it didn't happen. So you never defeated Dusty Rhodes in a loser leaves the state match anywhere.
No, I never. Only time I wrestled Murdoch and Rhodes, I think, was in Minneapolis when they were a tag team there.
Yeah, I had a feeling, but I thought I'd mention it anyway. Why not? Next question, Peter D. Hi, Don. Did you change your wrestling style when you moved territories? The WWF was far more showmanship than the NWA in the 70s. Were you told to be different depending on the territory?
No, you always had your own, your own shtick, what you're doing. Sometimes you may have to kick it up a little bit. Sometimes, if you're going to go someplace as a top guy, you know what you're doing. Like, Piper wasn't going in and making learning how to cut promos. Adonis wasn't doing something. Orndorff wasn't, Valentine didn't change his style. Everybody, people, yeah. People didn't, Jack Briscoe still had that left arm flailing out in front of him. People never changed styles. Maybe change heels or change something. I don't know. There were territories, that wanted other things. Roy Shires had a different formula and liked you to do other things, and in other territories, you just pretty much you'd have to learn by yourself. Florida had a lot of wrestling on the mat stuff, and it carried through for a lot of the southern states, and every place was different, but every place was also the same as well.
Yeah, well, they're going to bring you in for you. They're not going to bring you in for a version of you, are they?
Yeah.
As far as different styles, because you mentioned a good point there. You said Florida likes more mat-based wrestling. What were the more extremes of styles that each territory preferred, would you say? Like, so, LA preferred high-flying, let's say, as an example.
Well, LA had your basic, American style, and they had a lot of lucha libre, the Mexican influences. So it'd be across Gorman and Goliath, Mil Moscatus, Ray Mendoza. A lot of those guys from Mexico drew well there, as well as Blassie and John Tolis and Bo Brazil and a lot of other guys from the States. There was a blend there. Probably for down Watts, Watts would want something, a type of wrestling, or I'm sure And if he'd tell you what he was looking for. He wasn't shy, wasn't bashful. I'm sure he'd go up and tell you what he was looking for, what or what maybe you were lacking that he wanted in his territory to get you over, or something like that.
What territories were most into the weapons and brawling and such?
The foreign objects, you mean?
Yeah, the international objects, as Ted Turner might say.
There again, too, it was a guy that, usually somebody would have like a Cicluna, or somebody would always have, something in their pants, something that.
But as a territory, I mean, let's say they would encourage you to, use chairs and weapons and brass knucks every match, and they overdid it a lot more than other areas.
Well, most of those places they didn't want any of that stuff till the end. They wanted. They didn't want you going out there and stealing from their main event or something. They have a chair involved in the finish, to coming back for something else. They didn't want they didn't want a lot of guys all over the floor, and all the guys, King Curtis and Bruiser Brody and those kind of Abdullah the Butcher, those kind of guys were working all over the floor, and different types of things like that. So yeah, they didn't want you, nobody wanted you out there going crazy. They want, if anything, they want, they wanted your matches to be settled down, keep everything inside the ring, keep all your heat in the ring and stuff too.
Yeah, I'm bringing up specifically like Dallas, because I think they had a Brass Knucks title, and a couple of territories had like Brass Knucks championships or whatever. I've never seen one of those. Was that just like basically you turn up in jeans?
Lights out match, same thing.
Oh right.
just a lights out match. Lights out. No Brass Knucks. No nothing. Just the Brass Knucks champion. You're a Brass Knucks champion. Boom, and that's more choking and eye gouging and punching and kicking than actual, arm drags and drop toe holds and stuff like that. It would be Brass Knucks. Like, like the chat, it was just a name, lights out match, same thing. Click, off and on the lights.
I will still never understand
the match is no longer sanctioned by the NWA.
I would never understand the lights out match at all. Because when I heard of it, like when I was a kid, I was like, what, did they just wrestle in the dark or what? I just assumed that they dimmed the lights and, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe they did. I'll move on then. Next one, Rick Jones. Based on promos, in-ring ability, and overall image, what percentage of the three characterized Don throughout most of his career? What led to his greatest push? So this is promos, in-ring ability, or looks.
I would imagine, you need a combination of all three, You need the promo and the in-the-ring persona, to the confidence and the arrogance to carry what your promo is over into the ring. And then what's the third one they saw?
Promos, in-ring ability, wrestling ability, I imagine, and looks. So wrestling ability.
Yeah, well, your looks are kind of gonna go be part of what your what your promo and what your in-ring work consists of that you create. You're gonna create your image or whatever that is.
We'll move on then. Chris Barrett, what are your thoughts on individuals like Chavo Guerrero Sr. or Jose Lothario, who were big stars in their day that ended up being used as managers later on in their twilight years?
Negative, positive? What do you mean? What was he more? What kind of feelings?
I've no idea. Just big stars in their day who ended up being used as managers later on in their twilight years. I don't know. I don't really know.
Guys get old. Guys get old, want a job, want to stay around the business, but they can't become agents. Then possibly they can become a manager.
Well,
else.
I'll entirely re-ask the question then. Did you ever meet Jose Lothario?
Yeah, I know. From Texas. I know.
Yeah.
He was a big card around Texas. And at Florida. I know he was a big card around Florida. I saw his name around. Then he moved down to Texas, and well, naturally he's from Mexico, obviously, and he was he drew well with the Mexican fans, and he drew well with the American or Western, the Texas fans. So he was like a double bonus there. But like Chavo Senior, I knew Chavo. When he was working with Piper and I worked mostly with his brother Mondo. It was younger than Mondo and older than Hector and Eddie. So there was the two, Mondo and Chavo. Then the other two brothers were a good deal younger.
Where does Chavo? Where does Chavo rank in the Guerreros as far as talent goes? Because at least in the territory days, he was obviously the biggest star.
Yeah, I think back in the NWA, he was number one there. Then I guess Eddie Guerrero became when Eddie was there, when him and Benoit and some of the when they were going and he was coming WCW with. Was it Malenko, Dean Simon, and those guys, And I saw some of his, he was a hell of a hair. I know Mondo and Chavo as well. Hector, I don't know if I've ever met him or I don't know him that well. And I met the youngest, the junior, just to say hello and a few things, but I never worked with him. Mondo mostly. And I worked a few times with Chavo, but I don't think it was anything, earth-shattering or something, either going through or coming back or something like that.
With Chavo, I've heard that he was in a business of self-promoters, quite a big self-promoter. And I can't remember who has said this, but I'll just repeat what this person, whoever they are, has said. Was that he would embellish his own accomplishments and his own importance in the business. Is that something that rings true?
I couldn't tell you. I know that he and Roddy did, and Piper did the sensational business around LA and stuff in that California, Southern California area for a while. He was the right heel. I mean, he was the right baby face. And Piper was the right heel with La Cucaracha on the bagpipes and the promos and the stuff. I guess they kept working, working angles and working things to come back. So then Piper and Guerrero were big card. They did a lot of business for the LaBelles.
Was that the last big thing that ever really happened in LA? The Chavo Roddy Piper thing?
I would think so. Louis Tillett might have done some business, but yeah, I don't think anything did on the level that they did. And I don't know what they did, but they're all making a living. I imagine, like Bakersfield was up, San Bernardino was probably doing decent houses. Probably everywhere they were going at that time, was doing well. And then the Olympic with all the Spanish and mixed population down there. I'm sure they probably had some good houses there.
Yeah, I believe that Andy Kaufman was one of the people in the audience when Roddy Piper and Chavo were going back and forth a lot, and it influenced him definitely. Yeah,
he was a big fan of Roddy. I met him in Atlanta. He came to Atlanta one time when Piper was at the Omni, and he came out with us afterwards. Very straight guy, very strange guy. Didn't smoke, drink, just kind of looked at you, Yeah.
What did he drink?
Water, Coca-Cola. No alcohol. Or smoke. Died of lung cancer, too. Strange.
Yeah. There's a good film, Man on the Moon. I mean, if you've ever seen it, I know it's probably just as interesting behind the scenes because Jim Carrey Made everyone's life a living hell, including Jerry Lawler's.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What year was this that you met Kaufman, by the way?
Would have to be just before Piper went to New York. When I was in and out that summer, I was out of New York. 82, 3. So I don't know if he'd gone. When did he and Lawler go on Letterman?
Got a feeling that was before, maybe 81 or something, but I mean, I can find out. But yeah.
Not important, yeah.
No, it's not important. We'll just leave it there then. Right, we'll move on. E. Armstrong asks, "Hi, Mr. Muraco. I have 2 questions. First one is when Mr. Fuji was a wrestler and a manager, he would often throw salt in the eyes of an opponent. Was it actually salt or something else that wouldn't hurt that much?"
Salt. Salt would mix with you have some powder or something in there to make it, so it poof, so it wouldn't just disappear. It'd be in a minute. There'd be some residue like the gunshot. When the gunpowder, gun smoke was still in the area. The residue was lingering in the air of the evil salt. Yeah.
So you say Mr. Fuji
Like, what
cut
was
the
that?
salt?
Oh, that big cloud of what over there? It's a cloud mysteriously,
The referee,
mysteriously pure. Yeah.
the referee giving it one of those.
He'd throw a little baby powder or something in there with it.
I like that
Makes it dust,
I like that he cut the salt. It was the
Yeah.
80s.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
It-
he cut the salt.
I know Fuji likes an expensive rib, but I mean, do you think he would have ever cut the salt with a more illicit substance just to see what would happen?
No. That would have gone into his pocket.
Although he might have. The second question this chap asks is, also there are a couple of what I would call supercars that happened in Hawaii. Do you know if Vince bought the Hawaiian footage, as he's done with a lot of federations, or is it still out there, and do you think it will be made available to be seen at some point in the near future?
It was around. I don't know who bought it. Liam Maivia had it. If anybody'd have it, it'd probably be The Rock, his mother. They're, although I don't know if they kept any tapes or anything once they moved away. But that was one of those, like a chic card in Detroit. I think it was Flair and Steve Offey we were talking about earlier. And I think they probably could have done the hour as well. I mean, there were 50, 70 guys in the card from all over the world. Inoki backed it. They may have a copy. Might be a copy. I think Inoki or the Japanese had a backing. Fritz donated some talent. All kinds of guys had their finger in there. I don't think anybody made any money back, but a lot of people threw their hat in the ring.
Yeah, this was something I wrote. I think it was like 86 where they did a big supercard in the stadium. They might have got like 25,000 people in there. And then the next year, they tried to do the same thing. Was it in the Aloha Stadium? Am I remembering that right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and then they got like 25,000 and did really well the first year, and then the second year, it was a complete disaster. They only got, a couple of thousand in. Torrential rain, horrible booking situation with Lars Anderson and, and everything.
Yeah, I missed both of those. I wasn't around for either one of them.
When you're doing the commissioner thing for a local promotion in Hawaii, were you ever offered the opportunity to buy footage from old Hawaiian shows or, to invest in that respect?
Nobody knew where. They all came on these big reels at the time. Those big, God, they have to be, can you see me? They had to be about that size.
Like a dinner plate size.
Yeah, like a 24-inch TV screen or something bigger than the dinner plate, but like a platter, like a huge platter. They were big, 3 inches thick. around, big round square, big square things, and you carry them like a little suitcase. Those are the tapes that they had back in from all those old videos, and stuff from the old wrestling show, the old Hawaii. Phil Arnone is the guy. I don't know if he's still even alive, but he kept a lot of he had access to all the old 50 state wrestling tapes and stuff. I don't know who had Liam Maivia and those. I think they're probably back in New Zealand, I would guess. Japan, New Zealand, something like that.
Well, it brings up a question then. So when Peter Maivia bought the Hawaii 50th state, would he have bought the footage as well, or was there even any footage to buy? We don't know.
No, I don't think there's much. I don't know what Steve Ricard got from Ed, how much or whatever, Ed Steve got from Ed. I'm not, I'm sure it didn't include a lot of tapes or anything. And it just was basically the rights, to run, and Steve was, Steve, he was into the AWA and wanted to be an NWA member and stuff like that. So I'm sure Ed got him for a good price on the territory. I wasn't really selling him, you're selling nothing, just naming rights to a TV and the
TV slot as well. I'm not even sure there was a TV slot.
I don't know. Yeah, since I'm curious if there was. There was some TV available, but I wasn't around a lot in those days, so I don't.
Off the top of my head, I mean, maybe from like 75 to 77, I thought pretty much the promotion had just slowed to a nothing. And then it was sold. I don't even know when Peter Maivia bought it. Anyway, I mean, we're just sort of going down a bit of a rabbit hole of fumbling through the dark there. So if somebody knows better than us, and we've got some good comments, YouTube commenters there that'll put us straight. But yeah, mention it in the comments and I'll bring it up next time. I'll ask maybe one or two questions because we're nearly at the hour mark. Alan Trail says, why does Toru Tanaka never get mentioned in the legit tough guys talk? His martial arts skill set was head and shoulders above any other wrestler I can think of.
Toru Tanaka or Professor Tanaka?
Toru Tanaka, this chap says.
Toru was a good worker. He wasn't a real martial arts guy. McRonald Kamaka. He lives from this side of the island. Charlie Kalani was from Hawaii. He was the Professor Tanaka. He was a good martial arts. He was a excellent karate, and he was a marksman for pistols. Real funny guy. Real mellow.
We'll have to assume that this fella means Professor Tanaka then. So, Professor Tanaka, give us some backstory on him.
Oh, he had that was Fuji's partner. Fuji loved to, him and Fuji were tagged forever. He was real slow, methodical. Well, Fuji's, come on, hurry, come on. Order, what do you have? What are you eating? Order. So I don't know. They go to the restaurant. I don't know what I want. Come on. And a hot soup. Bring me soup. I want the soup to be hot. I'm going to sandwich this and that. And order the meal and behind. And waitress, bring me what are you ordering now for? We're almost done. He was one of those guys who Fuji would go out of his way to rib him, would kill him, do stuff, rack his brain to rib him and drive him crazy, and he'd get a giggle out of it, or Fuji, you crazy bastard, that. But as it turned out, things he did would just backfire on Fuji all the time, and just Fuji would just drive him more crazy.
I think with when people say a legitimate tough guy and mentioning their martial arts credentials, I think what they want to hear is a potential fight that they were involved in or somebody who they taught a lesson to. Do you have any of those? We
came out of a building one time and the nunchucks and all those other things, but he kept a little, like a little head, like a 50-cent piece or something on the end of a wire. And he'd spun it, and it was like a nunchucks, but you couldn't get close because it was lethal if it ever hit you, and he's no, and he was always very calm, but Fuji, like, he was the one who'd fall asleep on the side of the ring during the promos, the interviews. So Fuji would tape a newspaper to his foot. He had to wear wrestling boots because he had bad feet. So Fuji would tape a newspaper to his boots and set it on fire, and he'd wake up and huge flame coming from the bottom of his feet. There's stuff like that. And Fuji drive him nuts, and then somehow without thinking, he'd just come back and just do something to blow Fuji away.
What would you blow him away with?
Oh, just the eating, or the timing is slow, or, just not. Oh, I thought we were going. No. Just a change of pace. Because Fuji's always in that rush. Let's go, airport, an hour at a time. Here we go. Here we go. Everything. You're always on time, always moving, always always on a schedule. Always like the Japanese in Japan, schedule. And he was always been, and Tanaka was a Hawaiian time boy. Oh, brother, I don't know. I'm not hungry yet. And everybody's finished, and bring me the steak dinners.
I'll ask this last one then, and if it's no good answer, I'll ask one more. But Yosemite Dan asks, does Don remember the Fuji Vice outtake on the beach where he cuts a promo on Vince about why he hasn't got reimbursed for his travel expenses? The clip is on YouTube, and asked Don if it was common that Vince would later reimburse payoffs. With reimbursements and payoffs, excuse me.
No, I don't remember it. That was probably just just a play. It was a joke, something I was sending back to the office, fooling around. You always got your money. Vince never paid anybody anyway. It was always stolen, or one of those guys you got your money from. I don't think Vince ever gave me a dime the whole time I was there. I
was going to say, it didn't quite ring true from what I've heard before that Vince would reimburse you for anything really anyway.
Yeah, Vince never handled money. Vince was Skolin or somebody else.
Okay, then. Well, I'll ask. Sorry, Karen.
If it's on YouTube, it'd be funny to see.
Well, I'll tell you what then. Well, let's find it.
It's just something I just grew up. Something I just broke down in between. All the filming and tapes and running around the island and stuff like we did.
I found it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Give me a minute. I'll have to set this up. Oops, dearie me. Take me ages. There we go. Can you see?
I see. Yeah, me and young girls.
Yeah, this isn't Fuji Vice though, is it? This is like
young me and young girls.
This isn't Fuji Vice though, is it? This is when you were doing that surfing promo when you were coming back.
Yeah. Yeah, this is before I got.
Oh, sound going? This being the very first promo on the very first day, we all know we have marbles in our mouth and cotton. And don't worry about the countdown, keep it running, because I know Vince McMahon is a very hard man to get a hold of. First of all, let's discuss the Middle East trip. I have here the airplane ticket, which I have not yet been reimbursed for. I have my salary, which I have not yet received the full amount. I got it. You don't have to worry about business here. Since you're such a hard man to get a hold of, it only comes to approximately $800. I know with all the millions and millions of dollars I've drawn you, that $800 is a hard bunch of money. It doesn't matter if I'm tongue-tied or not. $800 is hard for you to come up with. So please, in your generosity, one of these days, you think you could please send me my money? God damn it.
There you go. I had no idea about that.
I didn't either. I had no idea. That was just bullshit. I was just fooling around.
So you never got your $800 then, and you.
I'm sure I did. Yeah, in spades. Yeah, I don't remember that.
You always mention the Middle East trip. You've mentioned that quite a few times. Was that just a very memorable trip for you? Because the only story I remember from it is something about Jimmy Snuka going crazy and Sal Balomo challenging. Is it Tiger Chung Lee to a fight?
Tiger Chung Lee, yeah. Sal Balomo flipping out. And Snuka, the girl. Was that the same trip? Les Norton, yeah, I guess, was it? Yeah, I guess Jimmy was on that one too. Girl brought a beautiful Rolex, blue-faced with jewels and stuff. She was another Jimmy Snuka fan. I don't know. And I mean, he wouldn't get back to her or something. Stayed up all night drinking. Everybody else has gone to sleep. Was up all night. You know, it was just blotto the next morning. And the woman and the cops wouldn't let us leave. They would because nobody knew what the hell was going on. Everybody, was hungover or whatever from the night before, and we're trying to get to the airport to get to the next UAE country that we're going to. So we're going and they're there and they're sitting down and everybody's on the bus and nothing's happening. And I hit Big Sam and they got in a row. And finally got the watch. The woman got her watch back. And then we got to the airport and our plane had left. So everybody had to sit there for about 5 hours where Jimmy was hungover, and Jimmy was drunk and went in the corner and fell asleep till the plane left. And everybody was sitting there going, God damn it.
That was it for Jimmy as well, wasn't it? Wasn't he chucked from the company after that?
No, he was back. It was I don't know. Wasn't until a couple tours later that he got popped. So I don't know if he was back or before WrestleMania. I'm not sure.
Was there anything else that was interesting on that trip apart from Snooker?
Oh, just a couple. It was pretty cool. Just being there, all that. There was when I had the belt, I was some kind of champion, and I went there to drive. I switched it to Rocky because Rocky was going to go back there. What would the champion be? Middle Eastern champion or something like that?
I've never heard that.
Some kind of Well, anyway, some kind of belt that I dropped to Rocky somewhere on that trip.
Well, there you go. That's something else for people to find out. So there was some sort of WWF belt that was only defended like once in the Middle East somewhere, apparently. So
I guess, yeah, a belt that I lost that Rocky Johnson took off him. Where it came from, nobody knows. This is a mysterious belt that appeared, and then that's it.
Yeah, Jimmy Snuka probably left with it somehow with the watch, maybe.
Yeah, that and the watch. Oh God, he was nuts. He was crazy. It was a beautiful watch. It was like a teal face with beveled jewels around the outside. I think diamonds or rubies or emeralds, sapphires. I don't know. It was beautiful. Rolex. And in the Middle East, they got they're around there like popcorn. They're all over the place.
Yeah, they've got money and they know how to spend it, don't they?
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to shut down this podcast. We've gone over an hour, and that was quite a nice surprise at the end there, because I've never seen that clip before. I never even knew it existed. So
I did. Me too.
Yeah. Do you remember even doing that?
Well, I remember the girls. I remember going around there. I don't remember I don't remember that. I pulled out all that paper and stuff like that. I was just, some kind of rib. I've been Fuji. Didn't know what the hell I was talking about either. Obviously, nobody was. $800 was nothing for them. The Office. That was. So it wasn't. It was just a rib.
Where was that filmed, by the way? Do you remember?
That was at Waikiki Beach, by the Hilton Hawaiian Village. Over there.
I'm surprised they didn't film it like on the coast of Baltimore or something like that. If it's got a coast.
No, they flew over. And Nelson, the guy that the head of the production in Baltimore, and a couple cameramen came, and we went around all over the island, surfing and with the three ladies and all kinds of stuff. My old lady was sitting home pregnant.
There's worse ways of spending a day and getting paid for it, isn't there?
Yeah. Oh, I didn't get paid. I don't think I got paid.
We didn't get your $800 reimbursement for the Middle East tour
No,
either.
I didn't get it.
Well, that's Vince McMahon for you. It's a privilege to be on TV. You should be paying him.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, so I'm going to shut down the podcast. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us, and thank you. We'll be back next week, I imagine. I don't know what will be back next week. Probably February of the WWF year in review sort of thing. But for now, thank you very much for joining us. We'll catch you next week, and thank you, Don, for entertaining us once again.
Hello, once again. Have a good week.